crazy for you to say. Wow. Nowhere else in any job have I been able to be like, what adhesive do I need for this one thing? And I can be like, oh my God, let me tell you about my knowledge for adhesives. Like, that is great. This is good. This whole thing that we've got going on here is like important.
My name is John Welin, and I'm the shop director here at mHub. It was extremely quick for us to get set up. We just took the data that we had used previously. I think it maybe just took me a day or two to get the settings right. So we matched the pricing that we had in our old system. And then from then we were able to do much more advanced sort of pricing, which is one of the reasons why we chose DigiFabster. So to be able to bring in some existing models, some models that you've had pricing for, and then to be able to go through the options to see different ways that you could calculate pricing for like large, lightweight models or models that might use a lot of support material or take up a lot of room in the bed. Those were things that we couldn't do with our previous solution. Well, from the user end, not having to answer as many user questions, the user can upload a file, they set the scaling, they set the orientation, and they can see the pricing. They can see the volume discount. They can see any policies we have about turnaround time, and then they can make the decision whether to print or not. And then we don't really interact with the file until it's been a paid job. From the admin end, being able to see all the orders that are coming in, we run the printer when we get enough volume. So then being able to see, will we reach that volume tomorrow? Will we reach that volume this week? Being able to see that on the dashboard was really helpful. On our wish list would be being able to take a look at individual printing technologies. We have many mixed orders for different printers. So we'd love to be able to say, how many SLS jobs do we have? And then be able to download just those files and start processing it.
Hi, hello, I'm Charles. I'm one of the 4 shop staffers at mHub. I help manage quite a few of like the additive manufacturing type labs. So 3D printing, which is where we are currently with my beautiful child behind me, the Formiga. I also cover a lot of the laser cutters as well as a lot of other plastics equipment. So injection molding, UV printing. I help oversee like acrylic bending and just a smattering of other things. I have a lot of experience in painting. So also like people who need help with like casting and painting, I can dip in. But yeah, very multifaceted. And whatever I can't do, my other 3 lovely coworkers typically have some experience in. So we can sort of trade off with each other, which I really appreciate.
That's awesome, of course.
I think the biggest thing that sets us apart from other makerspaces or other incubators, right? Or just even other co-working spaces is the community. Every time that like anyone has been like, this place is so cool, like the first thing they'll mention is like the community seems really open. And it's true, like it's partially why I was like, I want to work here, is because we have a building filled with like chemical engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers, and then we have sitting next to them like artists and fabricators and people who work in totally different fields. And so by nature, it's a really collaborative space. So if you have questions about a process, or you don't know how to like approach something, or you're just looking for information on like, what's a good manufacturer that I should use for this kind of piece or this kind of equipment? Like, where should I go? Typically, there will be someone in the building or in the community that can answer that question for you. So we have the ability to sort of cater to a wide part of the population that's looking to create physical products, but also just people who are looking for guidance on how to run their businesses or how they can improve what their current processes are. They can reach out very easily to someone else who is connected with mHub, who is already a member at mHub, and just immediately get that information. Like it makes it really, really easy to collaborate. And I think that the same goes for the way the shop operates, right? So we have so many different kinds of equipment and so many different labs that you could very easily say, I'm working on something that requires a PCB. I'm not that good at designing PCBs, but so I need help with that. Does anyone who typically works in electronics lab like have 5 minutes to talk over my project? And there will usually be someone who can like do exactly that and wouldn't have to charge you for consulting because they're just here in the lab. Why not talk to them? A lot of makerspaces that are membership focused, right? I think that really for us is like one of the big things is having people who are already invested in like making the space successful and getting what they want out of it, right? People come here because they have a project they're working on, they have a business they're already tied into, or alternatively, they worked in another space and they need more support for something, right? So people who come to mHub have very specific goals, and we're able to say, okay, we can deliver on these goals specifically. So not that like any space needs to have a niche per se, but I think generally when you're thinking about access to equipment, it's not just can I get access to a laser cutter? It's okay, why do you need the laser cutter? Like, are you working on a larger project? Are you working on are you working on your Series A funding and you need like a physical product to show someone, to show an investor? Okay, cool. Let's support that too, right? mHub is specific because we have co-working spaces and garages and offices and the ability to support like things on top of the manufacturing. But even without that, it's like, okay, you can't just support someone's access to a machine. It also has to support the rest of their process. If they have to use one specific thing and then say they want to laser cut something and they never need a laser cutter ever again, that's totally fine. But if you're someone who's like prototyping a product or working long term on a small business and you need access to manufacturing equipment, you kind of want to have most, if not all of it, in the same place, right? So being able to look at not just a specific project, but every step of that project. I think that's sort of the difference for us, is being able to look at what someone is doing in totality and making sure that they have the resources they need to do that, not just any specific step in it. In terms of workload, right, although we have like 4 dedicated staffers, I think that does make a huge difference. There's like someone to ask if something breaks, right? It means we can also sort of split up our specialties as like staffers. But we also try very hard to like give people the ability, support them in the idea that they need to learn the skills to continue to use the equipment for them to be successful, right? So if someone just needs to cut one thing on a lathe, great. One thing, you're done. But it's like a training wheels dealio. If you want someone to actually learn how to use a machine and come back and use it again and again and again without staff intervention, it's okay, here's the training. We're going to create modules for you to follow. You're going to go through an in-person sort of checkoff session. We're going to make sure that you know how to use the equipment. And that means that people sort of have to do a lot of self-learning to get to a point where they are safe and competent on a machine. And then we can kind of go a little bit hands-off, right? Once we give someone the resources and the training to get started, yeah, they should be able to take that and extrapolate upon that. So that's how we sort of deal with a lot of the, I would say, the amount of labor that goes into running a shop like this, is that we try and push stuff back to members where possible because we know they have the ability to do it. Like, people are here because they're serious about stuff. And so don't just let me do all this stuff for you. Yeah, get involved, right? You're here to learn. For software, we have quite a few licenses for multiple different kinds of software, right? So again, mHub we have a lot of partnerships, which is fantastic. It means we have the ability to give sort of Fusion access to multiple different people. We have CAD stations dedicated here in the shop. People have access to Altium and Fusion 360 and AutoCAD and NetFab, as well as SolidWorks, et cetera, et cetera. You have the ability to come in and use the Creative Suite, Adobe's Creative Suite, do all your stuff, and then you can go home and be like, great, I did all this stuff today, right? And if you need offsite access, we can also get that set up for people. So it's kind of about lowering the barrier to entry, I suppose, for a lot of people getting used to software, especially if they've never touched a CAD program in their life and they need to learn how to use it. It's like, okay, you don't have to dish out the $1,000 a year to get a full Fusion license. You can come here, use Fusion to learn your stuff, and then you're already at a point where it's easier for you to access and work with different kinds of software going from that point. Tooling is, I would say, split between what I would consider consumable and non-consumable tooling, right? So work holding, soft jaws, you're working on any templates, right? Like, that's based off of material that you're bringing in and you're working on. It's usually per project, right? Like, you're making fixtures and jigs for your specific thing. If there are larger parts of tooling, if you need a specific kind of vise, it's expensive, but we would maybe find value in other members having access to it as well. The shop can bring stuff in so that people have access to it. We needed like a vacuum bag for like impregnating resin into something. We were like, okay, we'll just buy a vacuum bag, and if someone needs a vacuum bag, we have it now. Things like, bit breaking, the smaller, it's like the things that every shop has to deal with is like, oh no, we've broken a bit. That has risen our costs on this project by X factor immediately. Some of that is, okay, did the person like make a genuine mistake? Is this a learning moment? We can kind of fund that a little bit. If you come in and deliberately misuse equipment, we're here to be able to stop it and also give them a stern talking to. And if we need to, we can give them, here's the cost of the stuff that got damaged, and you are responsible as a user, and you are going to pay that cost back to us because that's how this space works. Other people are using the equipment the same as you. Damaging it means that other people can't use it. In instances where people are like, I need to have this specific set of bits for this one thing I'm doing all this chamfering on the shop bot, blah, blah, blah. Okay, please just bring the bits in. And then you get those bits and no one else has to touch them. Problem solved, right? But if someone needs training wheels, yeah, we've got a box of like 1/4-inch end mills that you can just grab something from. We can learn from there. Whenever the shop as an entity, like shop staff, are running projects on behalf of someone else, or we're taking on basically contract work or fabrication work, when we do that, usually it's a very similar process to anyone who's working as an independent contractor, right? Get contact from a client, figure out what you need, give them a quote, and then you go through the process, whatever kind of machine you're using, right? There's usually a specific workflow for getting that machine running. We are fusion people here, and that's up to you. That's a choice that you really have to make in your heart. For us, it's Fusion 360. For jobs that require like additive stuff, we'll come in, we'll figure out any like extra costs beyond material. If we need to like bring anything in specifically, or we need to bring in like a specific person to work on a project, right? Take that into account. If it's 3D printing, we just run it through DigiFabster and just say, here you go. This is what our cost is probably going to be approximately. We can add on charges if we feel it's necessary. For something like, we've had people come in and had outside requests for CNC machining from the shop staff specifically. Again, material cost, how much time would it take to get this set up? How much time would it take to actually run the part? Okay, let's figure out what that is like in quantity versus in a small batch, right? And then what's the programming time? What's the operation time? Going from there, we can give the client a semi-accurate quote, and then we can take on the stock and go from there. We have a dock, so we can take in large deliveries of stuff. If someone's like, I'm going to give you like 20 cartons of like small little acrylic cubes, and you're going to etch into them. It's like, great, okay, cool, yeah, have it delivered here, we'll take care of it. For operators who are working independent, typically, when people are creating files, right? So if someone's coming in and they have a part that they want to machine, file prep is on them. You're coming to us during our help session, during our meeting with you. We'll show you how to take that and run it through the CAM side of things. We'll show you how to run that through Tormach's like on-machine system, right? But then again, this is part of the self-learning stuff. Like, you are, as a member, are responsible for your own, whatever you're bringing to the table, right? Whether that's a DXF file or that's a full step assembly, that's on you. Bring that in and we can work with it. Every machine also is different. So depending on what you're working on, it might be a total different process for bringing in files and running with them. As opposed to having like a back-end system or something that only staff is accessing, the fact that we can just push people to, hey, submit your stuff through the portal, put it through the quoter, and then that's how you get the parts to us. It skips all of the send me a zip file with everything you have in it, and then I'll shoot you an invoice. Like, I can completely avoid that step. It's just, okay, I know that you as the user are going to tell me what you want. You're going to tell me what quantity you want of stuff. There's no guesswork on what the size of your parts is, because it's going to give you a readout. Like, that honestly is what saves me the most time. I don't have to reach back out to the client and confirm what scale they're working in. I don't have to confirm exactly what infill they want. They can just give it to me as they want it. And if I have questions, I can reach back out to them. That streamlines like half of the process, honestly. I think in terms of using it, like as a, I don't know, we call it like operator level, I think was very straightforward. It was like, okay, I'm gonna have this job. I have a list of my jobs. I can export my packing lists and grab my my actual raw files and process files. I can put them in whatever it is we're using, like, you know, Microsoft like Cloud, right? Pop them in, take them to the computer that we're slicing everything on, slice them and run it. That level of stuff I think was very intuitive for me. Granted, I don't know, I'm Gen Z. I'm like familiar with sort of automated computer processes to an extent, but getting to like a administrator level for looking over stuff, I think figuring out a lot of the human interaction elements of how we use the quoter, right? So things like, I mentioned like lead times, for example. Okay, so if we have a bunch of user-run machines, how do we communicate to people that the lead time is actually the lead time that you are running your job in? Do I just make the lead time non-existent? Like, what do I do in that situation? How do I communicate to someone in a really specific instance, like how this job is going to run? So besides like the legwork for setting up a new machine, which I feel like there's always going to be legwork setting up a new machine in any capacity, anywhere, but putting aside things like the material setup process, which although it was intense, I don't think it was necessarily like, wasn't hard. It was just took a little while. The hardest thing so far has been the hurdle for how do I communicate with people who are on the other side of this, right? Especially because we're in like a unique position. We're not just a production facility. People actually want to have a close relationship with us as we're running parts. So how do I increase the communication there? And some of that's making sure that the email notifications are all totally set up the way I want them. Some of that is like, okay, I know I need to like touch base with this person. They've sent me something that seems weird. I'll just contact them separately, right? It's about getting the information that I need to like flag a job and talk with someone. I will say it is uniquely hard because I see a lot of their physical stuff as it comes through. I don't always see the end product, which is always intriguing. Like I see one specific project that they're working on, but I don't necessarily see their stuff at the end of the rainbow, right? Or alternatively, I see the stuff at the end of the rainbow, but don't really see them at any other point, right? They want help with packaging and kind of nothing else. And so I don't know anything about the device that they're working on, but I know exactly what kind of box they want it to be in. I think notable members that I've interacted with, there's been quite a few people who are independent contractors who have had great relationships with here because they obviously they want to get the shit done. And I respect that immensely. We have a recent tenant who came back after a while, which I thought was really cool. Toast, which they create Toast Tab, right? Like a lot of the services for restaurants and things. They originally, from my understanding, during quarantine, like during the COVID epidemic, had a few R&D teams here working on the physical product. It didn't necessarily do all the development here, but definitely worked here during that process. And now they actually sort of came back after leaving for several years and are working here again, which I think that's really cool. We've had quite a few members who sort of left mHub to pursue other stuff or needed a different space. After we moved, came back because they were like, oh, this facility meets my needs more than my other facility does. And I liked mHub the last time I was here. So yeah, why not come back? That's been really cool to see. And they've also been very chill to interact with. I respect a member in a membership company who can like vibe a little bit, you know, not like hyper stressed, but like understands how this process works a little bit and are willing to work with shop staff. Part of the reason that I took this job is when I was in college working in their fabrication lab, advising students on how to make stuff. Yes, working in production is fun. I think not being customer facing all the time is kind of nice because you don't have to have the game face on every day. But I really missed interacting with people and troubleshooting their like really wacky things that they need to get done. Like there's something to be said for like someone coming to you with a really specific and unique problem, and you both kind of have to sit there and scratch your heads and be like, how do I get around this? being able to have people come to you with questions like that, sometimes it's infuriating and sometimes it's like incredible because I get to learn something. They get to figure out a solution to their problem, and we get to sort of figure it out together, which is more fun than doing it by yourself. And then, being able to interact with people who are like passionate about making stuff also feels really good because you can talk to someone about how you really like this one specific type of rib nut or whatever, and they'll like understand what that means. That's great. I can talk about 3D printing with like 5 different people for hours. It's really hard to get that in other spaces.
Help some people to accomplish something.
Yes, exactly. And we get to geek out about it along the way, right? We can talk about the Slack channel, again, is full of just people like talking about a specific process or what adhesive do I need for this one thing? And I can be like, oh my God, let me tell you about my knowledge for adhesives. Like, that is great. Nowhere else in any job have I been able to be like, let's look at the Loctite library. That's great. To me, that is wonderful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's really, really far away from typical corporate culture, which I guess is perfect. Which is perfect.
People want to do stuff hands-on. And that, I think, sets a lot of our members apart from a typical like co-working space or even a typical incubator, right? People like getting dirty. It's perfect.
Are you hoping for having more maker spaces and like machine shops in the schools and universities?
Yeah. Honestly, I would not have gotten into this field at all if I had not been exposed to laser cutting, 3D printing, 3D scanning when I was in college. I was always very interested in making stuff, but when I first went to school, it was for art, like fine art, totally different dealio. And then being exposed to, oh my God, I can automate my cutting process to make this whole thing like 10 times faster, blew my mind. And starting to work there in college at that same makerspace where I sort of first learned to like laser cut on my own, it was like, oh, I really like machines. Working with machines is really cool. Getting, honestly, students interested in that kind of stuff is something that I feel very passionate about just on my own time. So it's been really nice that people will come through with like tours of like a whole class or something, and I get to be like, this is good. This whole thing that we've got going on here is like important. This is how things get made, and you don't even realize that that's how that happens, right?
Yeah, that's I really hope how we can actually bring the manufacturing back to US.
Yeah.
By just starting, very early.
Yeah.
Just in the beginning, in the school, in the university, whatever. But you need to have this hands-on experience as early as possible.
Yeah, I want people to get curious about what you're holding. Like the thing that you are holding, the phone that is in your hand was made by someone, and it was probably made in conjunction with a machine, right? So how does that work? Yeah, it's important. That's an important question to ask.